Aprilia presents a scooter with more ground clearance than quite a few adventure tourers in this power class. But just how much adventure there really is in the SRGT 400 and what else it can do, you'll find out in this video. And with that, a very warm welcome to 1000 PS TV from Liguria in Italy, where today I rode the new SRGT 400. The SRGT 400, we need to place it briefly, is now the top model in the SRGT family, Aprilia's sporty scooters. But it's important to mention that this isn't just the 200 or the 125 with a bigger engine. No, the SRGT 400 has been developed completely from scratch. That means we've got a new frame and a new chassis. The only thing that's familiar is the engine from the Beverly 400 or the MP3 400 from the Piaggio group. But even there, a few individual tweaks and setups have been made to adapt the engine for this scooter. So this really is a completely new scooter that is meant to sit at the top of Aprilia's GT scooter range. And what else it can do and what equipment it offers, we're going to look at now in the walk around. Right then, let's get started with the walk around of the new SRGT 400. Although first, I want to give you a quick walk around of myself because once again, I'm wearing Bowtex. As you've just seen, I was out and about in a very casual outfit today in the video, but it's AAA certified protective undergear, abrasion resistant up to 120 kilometers per hour, so everything's safe. But now we'll really get to the SRGT 400. Let's begin with the looks because I think they've turned out really well. At the front, we've got this Aprilia nose, these triple lights, and I really like them. Quite simply because they remind me of the early days. Aprilia Caponord, who still remembers it? Back then, there was that adventure tourer with the Aprilia front end, and they've carried that over here onto the scooter, and I think it looks sporty, and you can tell straight away that's an Aprilia. I like that a lot already. And as you can see, we've also got the rally version here. That means the paintwork is based on the Aprilia Touareg 660 Rally, so they wanted to give it an even sportier look as well. Whether you like it or not, that's up to you. I think it works really well. Speaking of the Touareg, we can carry straight on at the front because this brake disc, 300 millimeters in diameter, is the same brake disc used on the Aprilia Touareg 660. Braking is handled by a radially mounted 4-piston caliper, and then right here, very prominently, we've also got the upside down fork, 41 millimeters in diameter, 120 millimeters of travel, and the whole lot is sitting on chunky Mitas tires. So the setup here is already pretty serious. Aprilia mentioned several times that they really wanted to take a lot of inspiration from the motorcycle world, and how well that has worked, I'll tell you later on in the riding impressions. If we move further along the side, I already mentioned it in the intro, there are 190 millimeters of ground clearance, which is relatively high. Although, to be fair, some journalists managed it today when we pulled away from the photo spot and scraped the rear, and that was with the center stand, because that is mounted relatively low after all. But if you keep that in mind, you've still got good ground clearance. And if we're honest, most owners will probably only be using it in the urban jungle anyway, and not in a real one. If we carry on, the footboards are in the standard version here, though you can also have them with aluminium trim. You can choose that in the accessories catalog, but here they're rubberized. They give good grip and plenty of space as well. But I'll show you that properly in a moment when we do the seating position. Let's move on to one of the important things on a scooter, and that's the seat. You open it here. Underneath, you've got the storage compartment. One full face helmet fits in, plus a bit of other small stuff, but I think they've created a pretty decent storage space for a scooter like this. You can genuinely use it day to day. We've also got, well, some paperwork in here. We'll leave that inside. We don't want to take that away from Aprilia. And apart from that, it's a fairly basic seat. Under here, we don't have any more extra storage options, but I'd say for everyday use, that's enough. If we carry on here in the step-through area, we've got a glove box. There's a USB-C port in here, and the glove box is relatively narrow but quite deep. My whole hand disappears into it. At the moment, it only contains the key, and as you can see, it's keyless go. So just like on many other Piaggio vehicles, you simply press here once to activate it, and then the display starts up straight away. Speaking of the display, What the head of the R&D department said was actually quite funny. He said, "Yes, we're Aprilia. We'd rather invest our money in the chassis and suspension than in the display." So Aprilia knows there's room for improvement with the display, and I do still want to mention that because in principle the screen is good, it's easy to read, even in direct sunlight. And above all, it gives me all the information clearly and quickly. What I would criticize though is that scrolling through the menu is a bit sluggish. It takes a moment. The animations aren't exactly smooth. So that is definitely something Aprilia could still improve. And Aprilia knows full well that this isn't where they're the best player on the market. But I found it quite charming. They said it themselves, we know it, but it's just not our strong point. Still, I will say that for what we use it for, namely reading the speed, it works well. And above all, it gives me the most important information at a glance. And if we're honest, most of the time you're not really scrolling around in there much anyway. Up here, you can already see ATC Max, that's Aprilia traction control. I can adjust it very easily here with this button. We've got maximum, minimum, and you can even switch it off completely, just like the ABS at the rear wheel. So if you really wanted to get a bit sporty with the SRGT 400 and kick up a bit of dust on a gravel road, that would be possible too. And it's genuinely funny and cool that a vehicle in this class gives you that option. Let's carry on with the walk around. If we move to the rear, we've got twin shock absorbers here as well, again with 120 millimeters of travel, just like at the front. And straight away you can see the gold reservoir canisters very prominently. It looks really nice, and of course it serves the purpose as well. At the rear, the suspension is only adjustable in preload, but I think that should be enough because you really can ride the SRGT 400 2-up. We've got a permissible gross weight of 360 kilograms with a curb weight of 186 kilograms. That gives us roughly 200 kilograms of payload. And if you fit a top case at the back and make use of the broad seat as well, you can definitely do something with that and head off on tour. Down here, we've got the familiar component from the Piaggio group, the 400 HPE engine, 36 horsepower, 37.7 Newton meters of torque. And the whole thing is paired with a CVT gearbox. It works well, very direct. I'll tell you more about that in the riding impressions in a moment, but that really is the only component we know from the Piaggio group. Apart from that, it's an entirely newly developed SRGT 400. And here's the rider's view as well. We've got the broad handlebar in front of us, along with the switch gear and the tall step-through area with the fuel flap hidden here. That's pretty classic for this sort of adventure scooter. What's been done very nicely though is the screen, because you can adjust it one-handed and even while riding in 5 positions. Another really interesting thing, and something I've never seen on a scooter before, is this cover here, where normally it drops down towards the fork. Usually on scooters there's just a gap here and you can see through the fairing and down along the fork. Aprilia has added a plastic cover there that simply blocks the view. I don't think it serves any major purpose otherwise, but it looks classy, it looks intentional, and I like it a lot. And with that, I'm slowly coming to the end of the walk around. As you can see, the SRGT 400 has a proper presence, especially here in the rally version. I personally like it particularly well. I'll tell you in a moment what it costs. But now, let's move on to the seating position. See you again in the saddle in a second. Welcome back. Now in the saddle of the new SRGT 400. I've taken my place here on the seat height of 820 millimeters and with my height of 1.75 meters. As you can see, I've got good footing. I can get both feet flat on the ground and really control the scooter nicely. It weighs 186 kilograms. That means I can move it around well too when I'm stationary and need to shuffle it about. On the footboard, I've got enough room with my shoe size 43. There's also plenty of freedom to move around. You could even adopt a slightly sporty foot position. Further forward, it gets a bit tighter. The footboard is slightly angled, but you can't really stretch out all that much. Still, I think even people with bigger feet will find enough room here. In front of me then is the wide handlebar, really the main feature of the riding position here on the SRGT 400, this broad adventure style handlebar. It's very pleasant to steer with because it's wide and it sits exactly where I want it to be, so I can position the scooter clearly both in town and out on the open road. That said, the handlebar isn't so wide that it should really cause me problems in the city. Of course, this section here often ends up at the same height as the mirrors on all those SUVs. You do need to watch out for that. But from my experience today, the handlebar isn't noticeably wider than on a normal scooter because other scooters might have mirrors mounted on the fairing that also stick out quite far. So even though the SRGT 400 looks substantial, the handlebar isn't so wide that it becomes impractical in everyday use. I already mentioned the city. Today, our ride started here in Santa Margherita, a beautiful town on the Italian coast, and there we were able to get a quick feel for how the SRGT 400 behaves in town, and several positive points stood out to me. Point 1, the engine. It's a familiar single cylinder, 400 cubic centimeters, 36 horsepower and 37.7 Newton meters of torque. What I really like is that there's no delay from the CVT. In other words, I open the throttle and we set off immediately. Some scooters unfortunately have that habit where you open the throttle, there's lots of noise, lots of waiting, and only then do you start moving. The SRGT 400 doesn't do that. It gets going well and quickly. Another thing that really stood out positively in town was the whole chassis and suspension setup. Yes, it looks more sporty and more adventure focused, but it works brilliantly in the city as well, because despite the wheelbase, which might look a bit longer on paper, the scooter is pleasantly agile and easy to flick around. Sure, we've got 16 inches at the front and 14 inches at the rear, so it's not as nimble as, say, a Vespa GTS 310. You can't compare the two, absolutely not. But even so, the scooter is very pleasant to ride in town, very direct, and above all, this high quality suspension means that bumps like potholes or manhole covers are dealt with really nicely. So in the city, it's a very comfortable scooter that lets me thread my way through traffic well. And above all, it doesn't need as much space as you might expect from a maxi scooter. After that, we headed out onto the country roads where unfortunately we got caught in the rain, but I think that's fair enough. On the one hand, it's a scooter. On the other hand, it's an adventure scooter, so the conditions are allowed to be a bit worse. I think it handled that well, especially because of the wind protection. We've got a windscreen here that can be adjusted in 5 positions, in 5 stages. You just pull the lever. It's also easy to do while riding. And on the country roads, you could once again feel the quality of the chassis and suspension. The head of the R&D department at Aprilia said, "We know chassis, that's where we put the money, so it rides well and stands out from the competition." And Aprilia has done that really well. Of course, the SRGT 400 doesn't ride like a motorcycle. You shouldn't compare it like that. But in this category of mid-range adventure scooters, it really does feel very grown up. The turn-in feel in particular is pleasantly direct. We've got these treaded tires here, but they don't have any negative effect on road riding. Quite the opposite, they give me good grip, even in poor weather. A lot of open tread means we can shift a lot of water. It's pleasant to ride, and overall while you're riding it, the SRGT 400 feels more expensive than it actually is. So what we've got here is a package in this mid-range class that rides in a very mature way, works well on country roads, and is genuinely good fun too. The brakes were convincing on the country roads as well, above all because they're not too aggressive, they're easy to modulate, offer a good feel, and won't overwhelm beginners, while at the same time not leaving you wishing for more braking performance. I mentioned that the windscreen is adjustable in 5 stages. In the highest setting, I think the wind protection is decent. Yes, you do still feel a bit of wind pressure on your shoulders and at your helmet, and that also has to do with the fact that the fairing itself isn't particularly bulky. It's been designed to be fairly slim, but it still works well enough to keep most of the wind pressure off you, and above all today, most of the rain as well. What it's like if you take the SRGT 400 onto the motorway, I can't tell you. We didn't do that. I think our top speed today was 80 kilometers per hour. But I know this engine from other vehicles in the Piaggio group. The engine works well on the motorway, and above all, we don't have the highest weight here. So as always, the SRGT 400 will surely work well on the motorway too, and be comfortable as well. We've also got handguards as standard. That means the scooter should be very good and pleasant to ride over longer distances as well. In general, as far as seat comfort is concerned, I can't say anything negative about the SRGT 400. The seat is pleasantly wide, and the pillion seat is also nicely broad, so you could definitely take someone with you. And you can probably tell I'm looking for negative points that I'm not really finding. The SRGT 400 genuinely impressed me today, so I'm slowly going to wrap up the video and move on to the colors and the price. As for the choices, we've got the standard version on the one hand, and that comes in 3 colors: gloss black, matte grey, and gloss grey. In Germany, it starts from 7,050 euros, and here in the rally version, which takes its inspiration from the Touareg 660 rally, we're looking at a price of 7,250 euros in Germany. For that, you get the paintwork, but also the MIA connectivity system as standard. So, to sum it up once again, for the new Aprilia SR GT 400, is there really a lot of adventure in it? I'd say yes, especially for the price. I think Aprilia has created a really excellent scooter in this mid-range segment. They made it very clear that they wanted to stand out from the competition with a sporty chassis and high-quality suspension, and they've achieved that. Yes, alright, the display is a bit slow, not the best to use, but Aprilia knows that, and they're not really trying to pat themselves on the back for it. So I think that's fine. And I also think the price of 7,050 euros in Germany is a fair package that compares well with the competition. So overall, in terms of the complete package and value for money, the Aprilia SR GT 400 absolutely delivers. Sure, I could draw a few quick comparisons with the competition now. What have we got there? The Honda ADV 350, the Zonte's 368G. I've ridden both already, but we'll save that for future comparison videos that we might be able to do over the course of the season. But you can tell the SRG T400 is a real hit from Aprilia. A brilliant addition to this mid-range adventure scooter category. And yes, what I'd really like to know in the end is, what do you make of the new SRG T400? Please write it in the comments. I'm impressed. Bravo, Aprilia. This is the new SRG T400. A proper success. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.